This is a displacement map here. Kind of what a displacement map does is a lot of people are using them in like games and stuff like that because some of these game engines cannot handle a lot of polygons. And basically what this does is creates a map, and you can bring this map over a low polygon model and make it appear that it has high detail and a lot of polygons. It's just nothing but a visual trick and effect. So it really does not affect the geometry, it just makes it appear like it does. So with that said, I got the demo head here. This one's got the eyes in it, and I cloned one. And the clone one, we'll see it has no eyes in it. So basically, here, let's say we imported this one here, and we do not want to tamper with this. We brought this in from another package. So we cloned it, and now we have this one here. So this is the one we're going to be editing it. Alright, for this to work, you need subdivision levels, which this one has 3, and it also needs to have UVs. I got another video tutorials about this, but it must have these 2 for it to work. So for this little demonstration, we'll go ahead and I'll give it one more subdivision level here, and I'm going to press an X on the keyboard, so I just have a one-sided cursor over here on the left. I didn't want my cemetery, and let's go ahead and make a little bump here, and we'll go to the drag rack, and we'll make a bump on the side here, and on the other side let's Z-sub this here and break this out right here. And my next step is I'm going to create a displacement map. It's going to ask me to drop this to the lowest. So when I drop this to the lowest here, you can see it kind of got all boxy here. It's the lowest subdivision level. Then I'm going to come down here and create a displacement map. That's the first thing I'm going to do. And you see what happened here is we got a map right here, and the displacement is on. One thing to keep note is this only works when we have a type of texture. It created one for us. And if we look here, this one is 1024 by 1024. If we wanted one different, basically I would just select something different here and just click it and create a displacement map. Give it a second, and now it's 2048 by 2048. Now you actually don't have to run over here and turn this on or anything. It'll automatically do it by itself. So if this was off, it's already stored in 2048 by 2048. We'll turn this off just to show you, and we'll create. There's our 2048 by 2048 and our texture maps there. So this is nothing more than a visual effect. You can see that it's got the bump here, and it's got the one that's kind of sunk in here, and it's at some low polygons here. You can see the points here, but it looks like it's got high detail. And if we look at the map here, it may be hard to see, but you can see the lighter color pushing out and the darker color pushing inwards. If we want to clone this to get a copy of this, since if we open this up, there's no copy in here, so we can clone this right here. And this will bring it over here. If I open this back up, now it's back in here. We have the intensity for displacement. This is very touchy. If you move it to the right, you can go too far with it. Control Z that, and this is kind of the intensity of how much displacement you want. If, for example, that you get way out of hand and you're trying to get it back and just can't seem to get it back like you want it, just press create displacement map again, and it'll bring everything back, kind of like the first time when you did it. Then we have this displacement mode here. So as you see when I'm looking at it, when I press the mode here, well, it looks like the model's getting smoother, and when I uncheck it, well, then again it looks not so smooth. This is really not what this mode's for. I'll give you a demonstration. And for this little demonstration, I will need to switch here because there's already a bump on this one here, so I'll have to switch one that doesn't have a bump on there. And I'll come back here and select this one here. And of course, this will not come on unless I have texture. If I turn it on, it's going to ask me to put a texture on it. I'm not going to pick anything in particular size, so I'll just select this just to get it on. And this is just a visual effect. If I turn it off and back on, you can see how that works. Because this mesh really does not have any bumps at all on it. And how this mode works, if you're looking straight onto it here and we press this mode here, you can kind of see there's really no changes here. But if we turn it to the side here, now I want you to look at the star here. Let me go ahead and bring this in a little bit here. If I keep on turning, it just looks like it's baked on. If you keep a looking on the star up there by the forehead, not baked on, but painted on, it really has no bump to it. So when I turn this mode on here, we can visualize it as if it was baked on. So what baked on means is this is kind of what you see is what you get. Especially if I apply this right now, this is going to apply this bump to this character's head just like this. If I turn this off, I'm not getting a very good visual effect of how this is going to work. So we can turn that mode on to see how that bump's going to look. So if we want to apply this, we can, if this mesh does not have a lot of geometry, this will probably not work very well. So 3 might be alright. I think I'll get a little bit better if I divide that again. Once again, I will turn this off to show you there is no, there's no bumps here. It's just a visual effect. And then I'm going to go ahead and press apply right here. Then you can see the displacement map is off. We'll make sure it's off and we'll turn that off. And it really, now it does have a real bump to it. So let me turn that up and let's switch over this one here real quick. Press F on the keyboard to frame that up. Once you create a map here and for some reason the quality does not seem as good as you thought it would be, you could select this adaptive scan mode. This will improve the quality in the detail area. So once you select the adaptive scan mode here, then we would create a displacement map and redo it, since we already have one here, to see if this will improve the quality in the detail area. Well, anytime that you improve something, it takes longer to do. So I will not press the create displacement map right now, is because anyway you would not really see the difference if I showed you in here. So we'll turn that back off. Then we got the displacement map subpixel accuracy. Well, this improves the accuracy here and it gives you better quality. If you see the little slider here, well, 0 would be the lower quality and 4 would be the higher quality. 2 is sufficient. Once you move the slider where you want it, press create displacement map. Then we have the smooth UVs here. I had it off here just a second ago, but I'm turning it on. If your object is smooth and kind of round looking, you would leave this on and create a displacement map. If for instance you had a more mechanical type object out here that had some real hard surface edges on here and it was not so smooth, you would uncheck this and you would create a displacement map. we have the displacement mid value right here. If we look at the image here, we have some colors from white to black, and this is set at the mid color. If I move the slider to the left or right, it will lighten or darken this image. So this is something you may want to do and you may not want to. Typically I don't mess with this. You may have your reasons why you do, but that's what it does. Then we have the flip map vertically on export. Once this is checked here and you create an export map, this is going to flip the map vertically, because some applications they need the map to be vertically to apply correctly on the mesh. Not all, but some do. We have the 3 channel for the TIFF here, for the export. Once I select this here and I export, this exports the channels as RGB. And again, if we press export, I believe it exports at 16 bits. If you decide that you want to change the bit, you would select here and change the bit. Then you have the scale slider here for the scale factor. Then when you export, you're exporting at 32 bits. Since these are all highlighted, it's going to flip the map vertically and give it RGB and 32-bit on export. This is just a quick recap. So basically we need a few things for this work. One is we need UVs. If you're wondering where the UVs are at, if you have any, we go to UV map. As you can see, we have this delete UVs grayed out. That means you don't have any UVs. We can assign UVs for the UVs here, and I like using the PUV tiles here. But most of all, I like using this plugin up here, which I have another video tutorial on, is with the UV master. We're not going to go over that, but we need some type of UVs. That was one necessity, and we need subdivision levels. We need some type of subdivision levels for this to work. And anyway, I need to set it down to the lowest subdivision level to assign one of these UVs. And we'll press here, and as soon as we do, basically all we have to do is press create displacement map. If I decide that I want to put some bumps up there, I can. If I don't, I just want to create a displacement map, I'm ready to go. So basically all you need is UVs and some type of subdivision level for this to work. Now on this image here, you can see that the star on the forehead, one color is lighter and one is darker. One creates a bump and one creates one sunk end. This is what we call kind of like a bump map. Now this image is from white to black. It has no color in it. And the reason why this is a displacement map, even though it creates a bump, we can also displace that by applying the displacement map. So we can change up how this mesh looks by applying this displacement, where we can actually have a real bump here and it's sunk in here. Right now it's just a visual effect. So I'm going into the next one here is the normal maps, and there's going to be some settings very similar to the displacement map and kind of the same method sort of. So basically this is a type of bump map. So we'll go through the same procedure sort of. If we go up to geometry here, I did already this one already has the bump here. This is the actual bump here. And let me close this up for right now. And if I come down here to the UV maps, I know it already has UVs, but I'm going to create a map size at 1024. And we'll select here. Then the first thing we want to do is we can mess with any of these settings, but I have to go through them one at a time. So I will create the normal map, and this is the type of bump map, and it has color to it. So let's go ahead and clone this, because if we don't clone it, it will not be up here. So well, let's clone this, and when we do, then we get it back up here. Then we have the tangent right here, tangent. We'll select this and create a normal map. And once again, as it's not up here in the list, and we'll clone this because I'm going to do a little demonstration. So let's go ahead and switch this over to this colored one here, and we're going to go up to the texture and crop and fill this so we can see the difference here. As you notice on this image, I want you to pay attention where the bump's at. That one's coming out. It's the star on the left hand side. And if I switch to a different one here, this is the tangent, and crop and fill, the bump is on the right hand side. It is because we are viewing this from the inside out. This is kind of flipped. That's why you see this kind of like this right here. So let's go ahead and just bring out this guy one more time and frame it up, and we'll just switch this back over to the one. Well, we'll just turn that one off and create another one here so we get this color one back on. And we have the smooth UVs right here. Basically, when you are creating a normal map and your object has a lot of smoothness to it, we would leave that on. If it had a harder shape and more mechanical shape object in here or something, then we would turn that off before we press create normal maps. Then we got this switch red and green channel. If we look at the color green, it's in the middle, so if we select here and create a normal map, then it kind of got switched. We'll turn this back off and switch it back over. Then we have the smooth low res normals here. Basically, if this is unpressed and I create a normal map, it'll be less inflated. Turn that back on. Then we got this flip red channel. So if I flip this and create a map, and you can kind of see how that works. Just same way with these here. They're just does a lot of flipping. And then we have the blue channel, and you can mix these up whatever you want. So that's kind of neat, and this does create a visual effect as a bump map for texture. So basically, if I come up here to the texture map, and we're gonna select one of these right here. Now this is just kind of a visual effect right here, where it's really not a bump here, it's just kind of a rendering trick. And you can combine this with the displacement map on. So you can combine the displacement and this new normal map here. And we'll turn on this mode, and then we can kind of remember what this mode does. It actually kind of gives us the true representation how this will really look, and it, especially when you tip it to the side, you'll be able to tell a lot easier. So there's our new type of color map we have over here. Now that we talked a little bit about the displacement map, and if we clone this, we get a displacement map over here, and this is in the alpha. This is a grayscale image. Then we'd have to go to the alpha, then we'd export it. Now if we went to the normal map and clone this, this will actually go over into the texture, and we'd come over to the texture, and we would export this. But there is a plug-in that will help this out a lot simpler. And if we open this plug-in up over here, and we'll come over here, and it's the multi-map exporter. Now I'm going to go over some basic stuff. There's a lot in here, and this will just help you get you up and running just a little bit. A lot of information in here, so I'll just see if I can make it more simpler for you. So we created a displacement map and a normal map, as you can see when we did it down to the tools. Well, this can automatically do it for you right here. So if I have the displacement one on here and the normal, and I press create all maps, it's going to create all the maps for that. And we're going to store this in folder number 3 and press save. And this takes a little bit of time for this to work. Alright, it's finished. It's told me it's taken me 15 seconds. I could go to that folder, but I'm going to go through the folder through this texture option here and import it. I'm not going to really import anything. I'm going to right click, view, and thumbnail. As you can see right here, there's the demo head, and it has the prefix DM. Alright, this is displacement map one right here. And then we have the NM. You can see the text right here for the normal map. Notice this one is upside down. Okay, let's go ahead and delete both of these for right now. And if we come over here, now we can flip this with the flip all maps, and we can do this again and give it a few seconds. And we'll do that once again. Right click and view as thumbnail. Now it's right side up. So it's taking all these maps and they're right side up. So let's go ahead and delete that. Okay, I meant to press cancel. But anyway, then we can select any kind of map we want. The texture from Polypaint, we don't even have Polypaint on here. And these are different types of maps. And you can export the mesh right here. So if we select this, this will export the OBJ. We have the subtools. So when I select this, this will export all the subtools maps for the displacement and normal maps. So if we go to the subtools, as long as they have maps to them, let's go ahead and close some of this stuff up real quick. And we open up the subtools right here, and as long as they have assigned maps to them, as we go to the demo head here and we go down to the maps down here, just go to the texture map. And we have one here at 1024 by 1024. We go to the I one here. Now this one's different size. This is 512 by 512. So let's go back up here. Now we can preset this. If I preset it to any one of these, they're all going to come out the same size from the head and the eye. So if I want to keep the individual size, I would set this to 0 and export this by creating all maps. That way this one will keep at the 512, and let's switch the subtools, and this one will keep the original map size at 1024. Then we got this merge map. Basically what this does, instead of them being all individuals, this will merge the texture map from the head, and the eye map will be on the same texture as one. We have the export option. When we select this, we'll just go down to the file name here. And when we select this, we have an option to change the file format. If we just click in here, it's at TIFF, then went to PSD, then we keep on clicking, and we go to this other file format. And if you keep on clicking, you'll get into a JPEG file format, and you can click this for quality. Increasing this will increase the quality to the best. Then we have the overwrite. Basically, when you save, this overwrites the same image each time. So every time I create a displacement map, a normal map, it will overwrite each one. Now if you see me when I was deleting my other ones, is because I didn't have the override on. And the reason why I deleted them is because with override off, it would create more and more images, and that folder is going to get really messy for me to see which is which and which was created the newest. If I turn the override on, which I should have, then I could always look in that folder and see how things are looking, because it's just overriding the same images. And then we have the prefix here. As I pointed out when I was showing you the maps, had this prefix, the DM here. This stands for the displacement map. The NM just stands for normal map. And this is very good to have, because when I was showing you the displacement map, it didn't have a thumbnail image, and I couldn't really distinguish what that looked like. Now the normal map did, but the displacement map didn't. So the DM set it off and let me know it was a displacement map. You can change these if you want to. Then we have the switch empty here. Basically this is not getting into detail, but if you got some tools that you might have imported and it has more target, you can read up a little bit more on this. There's a filled in PDF help file that'll go in a little bit more detail, and because that's going to get quite long. And the estimated time just gives you the current time of how long this will take when I click this, and it'll give me, you know, how long this was really going to take before I even export this. So it kind of indicates how long it's going to take. And if I want to press reset, this will reset all this up here back to the default, and we can switch that back. Before you create a map here, you're going to need to adjust some of your settings if they need to be adjusted, or if you want to adjust them. So as you can see, I got the normal map and displacement map here that I want to create. Well, I would need to go to the properties down here. This is the properties that I will be using. Now this property here has a lot of same things that you'll see here that you will see down here in the displacement map. So we're not going to be using these, but since I went over quite a few of these down here, then you can kind of understand where I don't have to re-explain a bunch of these over twice. This one does have the subdivision level slider here for this one here. We'll close this up. And for the normal map, this one has the subdivision slider also. We'll keep that in mind here in just a second. And basically you do your settings however you want it. Then you create an all map right here. Now this subdivision level here, I'm going to kind of give you what I think how it works, not 100% sure. So basically when we are creating this displacement map, it is going from number 1 all the way up to the highest subdivision level to create that map, from 4 all the way to 1. Well, the problem with 1 here, let's go ahead and turn on this map right now so we can kind of see this real quick. Well, let's turn this back on so I can visualize the star up here. Well, the rest of the mesh is a little bit too boxy for me, not smooth enough. But if I move this up a little bit to number 2, this might be a little bit what I want. So now basically when I create a map, it's going to create it from 2 to 4 rather than 1 to 4. So basically we'll set this at the lowest. So when I come up here and I set this to number 2, it's going to go from 2 to 4. Now if I move this slider here to number 4, which is the highest on the subdivision level, or anything greater than 4, what's going to happen is going to create a map as if it was at subdivision level 1, if that makes sense. Let's close the displacement map one here and open up the normal maps. And if we looked at these settings here, we have a lot of settings here that are basically down here in the normal maps down here. So if we open this up, we got a lot of settings here that are very similar. But we're not going to be using these settings, but since I went over these settings already and we have a lot of similar ones up here, I won't have to go over them twice. Anyway, you have to use these settings to apply for the normal maps up here anyway. So we'll go ahead and close that up. We'll skip over one here, and I'm not going through every one of them. And basically, when you select something, if I don't go over it, like I said, there's a built-in help document in the PDF. You'll have to search for it. And let's say this is cavity blur right here. Well, we all know what a cavity is. We all know what blur is. Well, most of us do. And this is a way to blur cavity. So even though if you don't know the correct terminology or how things work, just kind of read the name and it's a dead giveaway. Then we have the mesh export right here. So when we have this open here, we have got some settings. This will apply when we export this mesh as an OBJ. Do I want to export it as all quads? Do I want to export it all triangles? Do I want to export it flipping the faces? Do I want to merge on export the UVs, or do I want to export polygroups? So that's straight up. Now, since I kind of like this displacement map and normal map that I might be using a lot, and I went ahead and made my settings, well, I like to keep them settings because every time I start ZBrush up, I don't want to maybe have to go through and change each one of these up again. This is why we got this load or save. So if we press load here, then we can go ahead and save this as a preset. This is going to save all our settings. Then later on, when I start ZBrush back up and I want to load them saved settings, then I would press load. Makes things a lot simpler. This is kind of a basic way that I would do this, because if you come over here and start turning all these on and saying, well, I'm going to export all these, and you may want to change some of these settings, but you may forget if you did change the setting because you got them all on and you're bouncing back and forth. So it's kind of best to do them in order. So if I go to the export option, I'm just going to reset this back to the default, and we'll just hide the export option for right now. And now I'm going to be working on displacement map. I know I want to flip this vertically, so I'll make sure that's switched there. And we'll go to the export option and go to the displacement map, and I'm doing it one at a time. I'm going to select anything by random. I'm not selecting anything particular. Let's say I wanted that on. Then I wanted to work to the normal maps. I'll switch that on, come down to normal maps. This way I'm sure that I'm doing them one at a time. Then I'm done, but I want to do the export, and I want to go to the export option, and maybe I wanted to merge UVs. Then when I'm done, then I come over here and create all export maps. Then it makes it a lot simpler when you do them in order than coming over here and turn them all on at one time, because you may forget that you did not do some kind of adjustments to that particular item that you selected. As you can see, I kind of skipped over a little bit of the cavity map and the ambient occlusion map. Well, there's actually sort of a reason why I did this, and because things are not working as I expected to, so I'm assuming this is a bug. But if we look at some of these options, just a few here, we have the ambient occlusion scan distance and the aperture. Well, if we come down here to the masking, and we go to the mask by ambient occlusion, we have the intensity, the scan distance, and the aperture. These are fairly similar to this option up here. We haven't even the intensity. So if we close this up and we go to the cavity map, we have the cavity blur and the cavity intensity, and we have some similar options down here under the mask by cavity. We have the blur and the intensity. You can find these in the mask video tutorial. I go over these for a little bit, but due to a slight bug I was not able to create a map because there's a bug and I was not able to show it. But I do go over a few of these settings if you want to watch the video on masking. So typically I kind of just had to go over this just due to a bug. And another thing is, it makes it where I don't have to explain myself twice. That means if you watch one video and you see me talking about one thing, then the next video you'll see me talking about the same thing again. Well, it makes the videos long and it makes them boring when you hear me twice. So anyway, we're just going to kind of skip over this for now. If you want to get a little bit more in depth, you can watch the one on the masking.